talking crawl space mold removal, and we're going to offer some of the best tips that we recommend making sure you get rid of that mold once and for all. And let's get right to it. Twin tip number one. We get this question all the time. Should I test in my crawl space and should I test in my indoor breathing space? That's a really good question. Look guys, if you already have visible mold in a crawl space, then I would definitely not waste any money on further testing because you already know you have it. It doesn't matter what type of species of mold. If you had a water event and you have mold growth on your wood substrate, just spend that money and remediate it.
Do the testing afterwards, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
However, if you are not feeling well and you're smelling that musty odor due to the crawl space contamination of mold, then I would highly recommend doing an indoor mold test. Why? Because when you're doing the remediation in the crawl space, you're going to want to remove the mold inside the house at the same time. Air scrubber at a minimum during the process of mitigation. Twin tip number two. When it comes to removing the mold from the crawl space, what we like doing is setting up an air mover or an air scrubber and tubing and venting to the outside. What that's going to offer you as a homeowner is a lot of peace of mind. Why? When there's a lot of particulates that you're stirring up in the crawl space, you want that to be discharged to the outside, not circulating inside, getting into your breathing space. Twin tip number three. Guys, if you're hiring a mold remediation company to mitigate underneath the crawl space, make sure you have them put air scrubbers. So depending on the size of your crawl space and what's going to be treated will be dependent on how many air scrubbers. So each air scrubber picks up about 1,000 square feet depending on the make and the model. So if your crawl space is 2,000 square feet, you're going to want at least 2 to 3 air scrubbers. If it's really thick biofilm, you want those air scrubbers to be left for a good 48 to 72 hours after the crawl space mitigation has been completed. That's right. And I would go ahead and offer venting those to the outside as well, especially if there's a lot of dust that gets stirred up. Again, it's just going to give you that extra protection in your indoor air. Twin tip number four. Should we use sanding methods or a chemical? And in what we like using here at the Twin Home Experts is more of a antimicrobial based product. We feel that it saturates inside of the wood, gets rid of the root of the mold, but it also removes the stain. Yeah, absolutely guys. When you're sanding, that kind of is an old school methodology. There's a lot of mold companies that continue to use that, and we're not bashing them. That's just how they operate their business. At the end of the day, we all want to achieve getting rid of the root of the mold, and that root of the mold gets way deep into the cell structure of the drywall and that wood. So it's very important that whatever your technology or process is, that it eliminates and eradicates that spore.
And the mycotoxin as well. I mean, there's a residue that the mold can leave that is still considered an allergen, and that's called the mycotoxin. In fact, we're going to leave the link below, and you'll see in the video here how our process works. And again, it's an antimicrobial that removes the stain and kills that mold. Twin tip number five, and this is going to be the most important. You know, one of the biggest issues that we're finding when it comes to crawl space mold is the source of what's causing that mold, whether it be a leak, whether it would be rainwater coming in. The last thing you want to do is throw your hard-earned money away, clean all that mold, and then the next water event, you get that mold coming again. And again, that's humidity as well.
We're big believers, guys, and that's the difference between us and a lot of other mold remediation companies is that we're not going to go in and remove the mold unless we really determine where that water source is. We want to make sure that that's fixed because we really strongly believe in the value of our service. We don't want that customer ever having to deal with it ever again.
And then also, once you find the leak, if there's a lot of wood substrates that's wet, really important that a dehumidifier or a heat drying equipment is placed in that crawl space to extract that excess moisture out of that wood, so that way you're able to perform a great mold-free environment.
Yep.
Well, those are our top 5 biggest tips when it comes to crawl space mold removal.
And there's a link down below, guys, for our products if you're interested. And also, there's a video on how to remove mold from wood very, very quickly. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe, and
We'll see you on the next one.